Merry Good Friday and a Felice Passover
Happy
to all
Dad.
you Judeo-Christian homies out there. I'm your host, Aiden Moss, on a very special Toronto Raptors Philadelphia 76ers playoff series preview. I'm joined by Oren Weisfeld and Kyle Brickman and our host, Chris. And soon to be joined by Sahal, who once again is having technical difficulties, aka is probably watching some footy game in I don't know, Belgium or something. Boys, how you doing this morning? Afternoon.
Yeah, good. I'm shocked at the energy you have for 9 a.m. your time. Like you got higher energy than I do. It's 1 p.m. I'm like falling asleep here.
It
I
only
love
takes
it.
one artificial substance, my friend. That's all it takes.
All it
Um,
takes. I'm just looking at. I'm just gonna share. You deleted the tweet, Chris. All right. Well, I'm doing very well on this wonderful Friday
yeah,
afternoon, where the trees are changing colors and the dogs are barking, and
cats are meowing.
there's some sunshine in the sea.
Guys,
Yesterday, yeah,
go ahead.
I don't know, stupid.
We are 24 hours away, a little over 24 hours away from the series of a lifetime. I feel like there's more excitement and anticipation, I think maybe in NBA nerddom, Raptor nerddom for this series more than almost any other. I've been a cynical Raptor fan for as long as I can remember. And anytime it was a Lowry DeRozan series, I had mucho trepidation. With the Kawhi series, I had high expectations. And so I was nervous in that respect. But this one is different. Like, we're the underdogs, but we're also, I think, like much better than most of, well, now national media, like 2 weeks ago, finally figured it out that we're a legitimate team. The 76ers arrow is pointing down, ours is pointing up. And so I feel like if we lose, we're kind of expected to lose, but it's also really disappointing. How do you guys feel coming into this?
I think we ought to mention like we might be the betting underdogs, but ESPN has the Raptors favored to win the series per
Wow.
BPI, their advanced, I guess, their prediction metric. So I, I hate to spoil the party, but we got to win this one. This isn't like we're not a surprise team. We're not playing with house money. This is like we're the favorites. I'm owning that. I'm running with it.
Yeah, I don't like that, like, all the national media is, like, picking the Raptors to win. I like when we were the underdog in all of these series, even the championship season, like, we were still the underdog all the way through. This kind of feels weird. It feels like Raptors, I don't know, it feels like people have caught up a little bit and maybe are even, like, overextending how good the Raptors might be because they saw that game on April 7th and were like, "Oh my god, James Harden looks terrible." And like, I don't think it's going to be like an easy series by any means, but yeah, I'm more comfortable when the Raptors are the heavy underdogs and nobody believes in them. And then you can get at the end of the series, you can go, "I told you so." You know, that's the best feeling. And I don't think there will be a lot of "I told you so's" because a lot of people are picking, like, ESPN. Forget BPI. All their people did series predictions, and like it was pretty 50-50 Raptors Sixers. So
Yeah. I still think they're an underdog. I think the fact that Embiid is in MVP consideration and James Harden is an all-time great, like that dynamic sets up a fuck you kind of like David versus Goliath perspective for the Raptors. Like, I think they're going into that locker room. They're not saying like, guys, like this is our series, like we're whatever. Well, I don't know what they're saying, but I think they're still leveraging the like, we're not expected to be here, like this team thinks they're better than us, blah blah blah. And I think I agree with you deep down. I would be disappointed if we lost, let's put it that way. Like, I wouldn't come out of the series being like, well, we gave it our best, we weren't supposed to be here. I would be legitimately disappointed, but I still think that we can use the juice that an underdog gives you.
I wouldn't be disappointed because I think they are underdogs, but I get your point. But I feel like, considering just not the matchup, because I get what you're saying about that, but considering where we came into the season and what the expectations were, like if we lose in a first round series, it's hard for me to get disappointed based on that. And by the way, for our live viewers, we're going to talk about some different, aspects of this series. As we do, you guys can drop some questions in the chat, and we're gonna highlight some of those and get to them later if you want to.
Yeah, because I don't know if anybody's been to raptorsrepublic.com
pretty good.
recently. There is a capital S shit ton of content on there, all kinds of different perspectives, all kinds of different media. There was a double dose of roundtables. Did you guys participate in that?
I did.
No, I did not.
Boring. And anyway, there's a lot of stuff going on. So go read that. We're going to try and give like a little bit of a nuanced perspective. Oh, yeah. Ahmed, just come on here and talk about somebody else who's not on the podcast. That's great. Thanks a lot, man. No, I agree. Samson is a genius. But he has his own video, so you can go check that out.
Yeah, Sahal will be joining us.
Don't
but
check it out now.
Who's more of a genius than Samson, will be joining us. So stay tuned for that.
Saul is so much of a genius that he can't figure out how to get onto the cast. Listen, people work in different ways.
He's going to open his Tor browser and try and figure it out that way.
Okay, we should talk about the series at some point. I think.
Okay,
we've stalled for Saul enough, and at this point, we got to get into it.
So we have the question of like biggest subplot, but what is the main plot here? Like, is the main plot just the like who wins the series? Because I feel like there's some like main stuff here, and then there's these little underlying like tactical intricacies that we could talk about.
I think the main plot is just
The series.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, thank you, Nolan.
Nolan's
like distracting us. We can't even get our thoughts together.
Nolan, words of advice. Take that another $10. Go to a betting site. In fact, the score right now has entered the betting arena, so you can go to the score and start throwing down some money. I personally have taken all of the plus odds on all of the possible ways Toronto can win this series. So I suggest you doing that. Thank you, Nolan, for the contribution. Okay, so
let's just get in.
Thank you to the score while we're here. I think we ought to say thank you to the score for help supporting the show. Click the link in the bio. Tell them we sent you.
Okay,
let's get into some subplots, and then we can figure out what the main plot is, maybe based off of that.
Okay, Oren, hit it. What's your subplot of the series?
Okay, and I think mine is a main plot, in my mind at least, but like as in it's the biggest thing to look to in this series, and that's like the Joel Embiid Pascal Siakam matchup. And heading into game one, I don't expect the Sixers to put Embiid on Siakam right away. I mean, it's going to be in Philadelphia, so maybe Tybal gets that matchup. I don't know if it's Tybal or Tybal. Anyone?
I like Tybal.
Okay,
I've been going Tybal.
We'll go with that. Maybe Tobias Harris gets the matchup, but at the end of the day, for like at least 4 out of 7 games, that's not going to work, especially in Toronto when Tybal can't play, and they're going to have to go to Embiid. Like, there's no doubt about that. I was watching this series back, the 2019 series, and they started with Tobias Harris, and that was a team that had Jimmy Butler and Ben Simmons as wing defenders, and yet they still had to go to Joel Embiid to defend Pascal. Like, that was the best option. So to me, there's no doubt that at some different points in this series, Embiid is going to have to match up against Siakam and defend him. And it's like, what can Siakam do in that matchup? To me, is the biggest subplot of this series. In the regular season, he's been really good against Joel. I think Joel's defense in the postseason picks up a notch and gets even better. And there's a lot of reason to be optimistic that Siakam can attack this matchup and that the Raptors can exploit it. Like, in 2019, he struggled a lot because he didn't have a good face-up perimeter game, really. Like, his 3-point shot fell off a cliff, and then the mid-range just wasn't there for him, and Embiid just dropped all the way to the rim every time and dared him to kind of shoot over him. Siakam's mid-range now is like really efficient, so that's kind of the X factor, is does the mid-range hold up against Embiid? And then on the other side of the floor, like, does it even matter? Is Embiid just dominating them so hard that the Raptors can't score enough to kind of match up with that? So I guess I'm going to be watching at what point do the Sixers put Embiid on him, and how does Siakam exploit it? And then there's also all these other things that come from that we're going to get into. Like if you put Embiid on Siakam and bring him out a little bit, then the offensive rebounding gets way more opportunities because Embiid's no longer at the rim to protect it. So I think if you're the Sixers, you want to go to that matchup as you want to wait as long as you can to go to that matchup, but I don't think they're going to be able to.
Kyle, what you got for us?
For me, I think, Oren, you kind of touched on it. It is the offensive rebounding. The Raptors are the number 1 offensive rebounding, or sorry, number 2 offensive rebounding team in basketball behind Memphis. The Sixers, in terms of like the offensive rebounds they allow, they're 19th in the league, 27.6%. The Raptors have a huge advantage in this category. They've relied on it all year. Does it translate to the playoffs? I don't know. At times, it seems like the games can get slower. People are more deliberate. A lot of the offensive rebounds the Raptors tend to be from just like outworking people. And is that a sustainable model in the playoffs when guys are going to be working their asses off for 48 minutes instead of, let's be honest, in the regular season, like a lot of dudes are working their ass off for like half the game and not all of it. So we'll see how that turns out. I mean, the Raptors actually aren't a great offensive team. They make up for it with getting a ton of extra possessions through offensive rebounds. And this is sort of concerning. If they don't get those offensive rebounds, I don't know how they're going to, compete with the Sixers offensively.
Yeah, there's a lot of data points that favor Toronto in the regular season that like you see time and again disappear in the playoffs. And so like that is really a concern. Offensive rebounding being one of them, transition points being another. Like Philly's one of the worst defenders of the transition. Toronto is one of the best offensively. Like those kinds of tempo things typically favor the team that wants to grind you down and slow you down, which is what Philly wants to do. I think like that's been touched on a lot by other people.
I think we should mention Philly's also last in the NBA at offensive rebound rate. They do not crash the glass at all. The Raptors crash the glass like crazy. Yeah. It's a huge stylistic difference. Right. And while we're talking about stylistic differences, we've got a man here with a completely different style. His style is late.
Oh,
our style is early. His style is late. Welcome to the podcast.
Welcome to the program, sir.
Hi. Sorry, guys. I apologize.
Computer browsers.
Yeah, some technical difficulties, I guess, to stay political with everyone. You guys were discussing the subplots of the series. One thing, guys, that no one's really talking about on this.
Saul's going to insert himself right away.
Yeah. You guys know one thing. Oh, Matt's here. Matt Shantz. Shout out to the guy, Matt Shantz. One thing that no one's really mentioning in this series, everyone's just stuck on the Joel Embiid and the length and what the Raptors are going to do to neutralize him. I've seen in the deeper dives that Louis Zatzman has done. Samson Folk released a really good video one today. There are some really good Philadelphia-based ones from Philadelphia beat writers and so on and so forth. One thing that no one's really touching on, that one beat writer in Philadelphia touched on, I forgot his name, I will mention it later, but is Tyrese Maxey and his the length that the Raptors are going to have to kind of combat what he does. He drives to the rim really, really well. He's shot the three at a really, really good rate, especially in the second half of the season. When you look at the whole of the Sixers, Embiid is the clear guy, right? MVP. He's my MVP. I know some of you guys are on the Jokic. Wow. Embiid's my MVP. I was going with Giannis, but I'm not gonna divulge too much. But Embiid is my MVP. People have talked about Embiid ad nauseum at this point. It's like we get it. We've seen it all. We've seen every play that Nick Nurse is exactly. He's good. No one's talking about Tyrese Maxey. He's so good, and this is the guy that I'm gonna put my hand up, guys. Right? Hashtag my bad, because when the Raptors wanted this guy, I didn't want him. I didn't want Tyrese Maxey. I knew he was a good player, solid floor already. As a rookie, he had a solid floor, but I didn't really see the ceiling. And this year, goodness gracious, like he's been so good this season for the Philadelphia 76ers. I did not know he could shoot at the rate he does. It's not incredible, but it's good. And Tyrese is, if Philly wants to make a run in this playoffs, it's not just going to be on Harden and Embiid. I mean, you need everybody. When the Raptors won the championship, it wasn't just on Kawhi, Pascal, Fred. Without Fred, they probably don't win in the finals. Without Kyle going off, I think it was like 11 points straight in the fight. Like you need everybody, all hands on deck. So I'm a little bit shocked that no one's really talking about Tyrese Maxey and what the Raptors can do to combat him with their length, the switchability that the Raptors have. It's going to give him problems, right? But I think Maxey is a guy that if the Sixers get past the Raptors, and by the way, guys, the Sixers, we keep looking at it from the Raptors perspective. If the Sixers get past the Raptors, I have full belief in this team to go.
No,
to go. I do, because I think from their perspective, if you can get past the Nick Nurse led team, who, by the way, I feel like is getting a little bit too much.
Same. I was gonna go on this rant.
Yeah. I saw Iman tweeting about it earlier today, and I was like, okay, guys, you got to start giving it up to the players too. They're playing, they're executing, right? Like
the series hasn't even started, and people are like, well, Nick Nurse won them the series.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I don't get it because it's what the national writers are talking about nonstop too. But you need the players, right, to execute.
All right, but let's talk about Maxey.
So Maxey,
I love him.
4 games against the Raptors, 37 minutes, 20 points on 53% shooting, 4 assists, 2 turnovers. He only averaged 4 free throw attempts a game. So he was their second leading scorer for Philly against Toronto in those 4 games.
Yeah, I mean, he never gets to the line. He's really contact averse, but I think he's going to give them problems. I think he is a good, X factor. My thing, I think, why I haven't talked about Maxey that much is just because it's asking a lot of a second-year player to be your second scorer in a playoff series. And as much as Maxey, as good as he is and as much as he done, I think the physicality and just, the increased pressure of the playoffs, over a 7-game series, I don't think he has what it takes to be that second guy. I think Harden has to be their second guy if they're going to win. But his speed is no one on the Raptors, except for maybe OG, can stay in front of him. Fred can't do that job, even with a healthy knee. I think Fred's maybe defensive weakness is his lateral quickness. If they're it's not a weakness, but when you ask him to go guard Trae Young or Tyrese Maxey, he gets blown by quite a bit. And then that's just most guys do. But yeah, I think OG would probably be my guy. It's if you're going to eventually have to calm down Maxey, I would put OG on him. But
he's also going to be tired, Oren. He's going to be chasing over Fred screens, likely chasing over Fred screens the entire series. So, and from the Sixers perspective, I've seen a lot of their writers talk about how, like you said, he's contact averse. He doesn't do well with contact, and he doesn't necessarily navigate screens defensively all that well either. So there's some things to exploit
defensively
here.
I think defensively they're going to pick on him badly because the Sixers don't like to switch, but the Raptors will get out in transition and force mismatches, and Scotty will hunt them especially, and they're just going to go at Maxey relentlessly on that end, I think. So, but they're not going to play him off the floor regardless.
Yeah.
My subplot is I actually think we're not talking about James Harden enough. And he's thrown up some stinkers against us, whatever. But this is James Harden. He's a legitimate player. He's
real.
What's that?
He exists.
He's a real person.
He is walking. Yes.
I mean, ethereally, he's walking strip joints, but in real person, he's on the basketball court. I think, to me, this is just who do we get out of James Harden? Because he has the potential to be the best player in the series. If Embiid gets stifled for whatever reason, Harden could just take over. He has that capability. And I don't think the Raptors don't really have guys that can do that, game to game throughout a series other than Pascal. So it's it's going to be a team effort, a concerted effort. Harden can literally just be the man. And it could be through playmaking. It could be through scoring. He can do it through a number of ways. Similarly with Maxey, we got to punish him defensively. We got to tire him out. I'm not convinced he's in the shape he needs to be. But I don't think we're fearful enough about him. Like, yeah, him and Embiid are a fearsome duo. He hasn't played that well lately. He's been getting a lot of shade, but I think ultimately, like, he's the guy we have to monitor because Embiid's going to get his 30 to 50. Like, that's unquestionable. It's like, can
50.
Harden give you 20 and 10? 30 to 50, I said.
Oh,
Yeah,
I heard
50's in that
30
range.
and 15. I was going to say, I agree with that too.
Yeah.
I think that's a good transition into what we were talking about next is what worries us the most about the Sixers. I couldn't agree more. I think specifically those bench minutes where Embiid sits, and again, Embiid's not the type of guy who can play like, the Kevin Durant 48-minute game. His hips are bad, his knees are bad. He's just not that type of player. And if Embiid sits like, if he plays 38 minutes, sits 10, it's like the Raptors are getting spotted 10 points at the beginning of the game. But Harden, if he can figure out those bench minutes, whether it be basketball Paul, it shouldn't be DeAndre Jordan. If I'm a Raptors fan, I see DeAndre Jordan out there, I'm licking my chops. Like, I'm so excited to see that dude play. He can
25 minutes
move.
minimum. We need
Anyway.
25 minutes minimum, dog.
Yeah, if Harden figures out those bench minutes, whether it be with Maxey, whether it be with whoever, and he can run a competent offense out there and sort of bridge that gap between Embiid minutes and reduce that margin that the Raptors are basically starting the game with, then it could be pretty nasty this series, to be honest. So I don't know. That's the thing I would be most afraid about. Or you got anything? What scares you the most? What strikes fear deepest into your heart?
Well, I'm just looking up these stats because I had the numbers for when Embiid or when Harden runs the show without Embiid on the floor, and they're terrible this season.
They're bad. They're really bad.
Oh, here, -11 net rating this season. So -11 per 100 possessions when Harden is out there without Embiid. Mike Prada had a good story on SI.com, I believe, about how the Sixers should stagger their rotations. Should they keep Harden and Joel together and then sit them together and let Maxey run the bench? Because that, like, in a small sample size, Maxey's been okay on his own, and those guys have been great together, and they've been bad on their own. Embiid without Harden has also been bad since the trade. So he was suggesting that they keep their stars together. Which is one way you could go about it. But I think for me personally on the Harden front, like, I just don't believe in him at the end of the day. I don't think he is going to thrive against this Raptors team.
Someone clip this right now. We need this documented in case it goes wrong.
I'm with you too, Oren. I, like, deep down in my heart of hearts, I'm not putting any money on James Harden to show up. I'm just saying that, like, it's the pendulum has almost swung the other direction where we're kind of writing him off as though he's like Darren Williams or something. Like, he can still be a killer,
for sure, and he probably will
Darren
be
Williams,
like a couple
Darren
games.
Williams woke up caught a stray for no reason. How did he get involved? Leave him out of
my
this.
favorite. If you're celebrity boxing, you're allowed to catch any stray you want.
True, that's very true. Well, he's one of my favorite players ever, by the way.
That's what I'm saying. What did he do to deserve that?
I need that baby blue Utah Darren Williams jersey. Someone needs to find that for me, please. I've been looking for that my entire life.
But yeah, on Harden, last thing, I think there probably will be 2 games this series where Harden puts up like 30 and 10, and we're all like, oh my God. But everything I've seen post trade deadline, it's just so inconsistent that it's hard to believe that he's going to go in this 7-game dogfight of a series that we all kind of suspect it to be and stay composed through the end of it and play his best basketball in game 7 or game 6. Like, that's the part that I don't believe, but you're totally fair to believe in the Sixers and be like, yeah, Harden's going to bounce back. He's been saving his legs, whatever. Like, if you have that opinion, that's fair. But from what I've seen, it's hard for me to get there.
He's no-showed in any big game this regular season, but he also might have been out partying. Like, who the fuck knows? Quickly, so Maxey with Embiid and Harden off the floor is in 1,600 possessions minus 3.8 per 100 possessions.
And that's a big ass sample size too. That's
one really quick thing, guys, about James is I think the tough thing with James is that before he even came to Philadelphia, this was a 76ers team that kind of struggled with athleticism a bit, and they still do quite a bit. And the biggest thing, one of the biggest storylines that's been surrounding Harden, especially in the second half of the year, has been his lack of burst, his lack of athleticism. A lot of times he just looks sluggish on the floor. And this is not something we're used to seeing from Harden. And I think finally we're starting to see the astronomical and historical usage of James Harden earlier in his career just kind of take a toll on him.
And also the
and
astronomical usage of drinking and partying at
Yes.
Dollar
on
bills.
late nights.
to be honest, side point, but I'm kind of shocked he's lasted this long. But that's like a total side point. I mean, could have to do with maybe his work ethic or whatever it is. But yeah, he's had a tough time blowing past defenders on the perimeter, and honestly, even tougher time finishing over defenders at the rim. So without that burst as an offensive attacker, who knows? Like we might see a different Harden. Like Oren said, we might see a guy that looks like the James Harden of old for 2 or 3 games in the series, maybe 4. Who knows? But so far, from what we've seen in the last few months, we're seeing a guy without burst as an offensive attacker that he consistently displayed for a decade in Houston. And yeah, that's forcing him to kind of like, what do you do when you don't have athleticism left, or when you're born with no athleticism, like all of us here? I mean, are any of you guys like major athletes? I'm assuming.
Hell no.
Yeah.
So you just shoot.
You don't get to assume that, though. You don't get to assume that. You got to take that back.
You're very.
Okay.
I'll take it back.
Disrespect this.
Yeah,
I'll take it back.
You.
But one thing Harden's been forced to do, because he knows that he doesn't have that burst anymore, is to chuck up shots. I mean, that's what he's been doing. His 3-point production in terms of his attempts has went way up, and the problem is now he's not even shooting especially well from 3 either. So I think it's like 32% with Philly in the regular season or something around that. I believe it's 32%. So it's almost like nothing's going right. You have an elite playmaker, a guy who can score. It's not like he cannot score whatsoever. I think he's averaging around 21 points per game with Philly, but he's missing that burst. And if he doesn't have that burst versus this Raptors team that has 6'9" dinosaurs running around everywhere, then he's going to struggle a lot. So we'll see. I've said it before, guys, like on shows previous. I believe it was myself and Kyle for the last regular season game, and we just did not kind of like want to cover it for too long. So we were like, let's talk about Philly a bit. And I mentioned that Philly, if they don't have that Harden, they are finished. They are totally finished. I mean, you can have Embiid average 38 and 17 in the series, and if you don't have a Harden that's going to help you out, because let's face it, we're not expecting Maxey to put up 25 to 30, right? So,
well, we should mention that in the 3 games,
James Harden heard this podcast and quickly had this quoted by Complex. And like, fuck you guys.
Yeah, we'll see.
In the 3 games Embiid played against Toronto this year, he was 29, 11, and 3. Like, those are good numbers. It's 58% true shooting. Like, those are good numbers. He had good games, and Toronto still won 2 of those 3 games. And then they won the 3rd game without Embiid. Like, Embiid could have a monster game, and it's just like everyone else has to do something. So we'll see. It's about everyone but Embiid, really.
Okay, let's transition to the next topic. They all tie in, so forgive us for any sort of avoid redundancy, guys. Just avoid it altogether.
I'll try my best.
What do the Raptors have to do well to win this series? Saham, coming at you.
As simple as this sounds, I don't think it's going to come down to what they do against Joel Embiid, because I feel like the Raptors are good enough where they can get away with winning this playoff series, even if Joel Embiid has a masterful playoff series. I think it comes down to who we just talked about. And again, you talked about redundancy. I'm not going to go over it again, but I think the guy that the Raptors have to key in on, I don't want to say as much as Joel, but James Harden is a guy that you can't just forget about him. You can't. And I think the Raptors are in a very good place where they have guys to just throw at him nonstop. And I think if you can slow down Harden, this series becomes a wash. It becomes a total. It's easy for Toronto to just get past this team, unless we see some sort of crazy Tyrese Maxey or Who else is on this team? This team,
Tobias
Philadelphia.
Harris,
I mean,
who
I
is
know.
washed up.
I
Let's
want to
save
say Tobias, but I can't even. Like,
I can't get there.
let's
he's
save
ass.
that for later. Let's keep it Raptors specific.
You gotta limit Harden. You have to limit Harden. And I know everyone's talked about Embiid, but I'm saying the key to this series is you have to limit their best playmaker by far, if you want to stop this Philly team.
Let me flip it, Kyle, to you and ask you in the inverse. If we, because Raptors Dan posted this, if we shoot badly from 3, can we still win this series?
You know what? I'm glad you asked that, because I think in general the Raptors' biggest advantage is that they just get extra possessions from nowhere. One of them was the offensive rebounding. Another one could be they turn teams over more than anyone else in the NBA. They have the highest opponent turnover rate, and they take care of the ball really well. They have the 3rd lowest turnover rate themselves. So the Raptors just need to, because let's be honest, the Philadelphia offense is better. They're better by offensive rating. They're better by effective field goal percentage. Their net rating is better than the Raptors. They're a more efficient team. The way the Raptors kind of get back to even is by buying extra possessions. So I think taking care of the ball and turning the Sixers over, which they've done all year, they've done to everybody all year, and that's the advantage of playing all these long guys. And taking care of the ball on the offensive end is how you kind of make up that gap. It's just by just getting more attempts.
Yeah,
I was gonna hit on the same thing. Like, to me, I'll get to the shooting part later, but I mean, I think they tie in. But to me, like, it's like, who dictates the matchup? If this is a slow half court game for every series, like we all know this, the Sixers will win. They're so much more efficient in the half court.
That's all they do.
However, what the Raptors are going to do is they're going to speed up the game. You're going to see full court pressure. You're going to see doubles as soon as Joel or James cross the court. And that's because they want the Sixers to get out of their comfort zone of playing slow. And that's how they plan on turning them over. And so we talk about, the transition's going to dry up. You can't rely on that. I'm not so sure that it's going to dry up that much against this Sixers team. Like, the Raptors are going to do everything in their disposal to speed them up, and I think that they are going to force their fair share of turnovers. Now, I'm worried a little bit about how efficiently they score when they force those turnovers, because they haven't been an efficient transition team this season. It's trended upwards, but in general, like, we know how it looked at the start of the season. They force a lot of turnovers, but they don't always make the teams pay for them. And in the playoffs, it's a different beast. Like, transition is like, you force a turnover, 5 guys sprint back. So it's a lot harder to score in transition. Your stuff has to be done to a T. The execution has to be a lot better. And I think this is a young Raptors team that's going to have some trouble playing with that speed at times. So to me, what the Raptors have to do well is like what Kyle said. They got to win the extra possession battle. They got to still force turnovers and hit the glass. But to go back to what you asked, Aiden, if they do those things, yes, they can win the series even without shooting from 3. If they don't do one of those things well, or both of those things well, then they're going to have to shoot lights out to win.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement that like tempo is going to be a big part of this. And to that point, it's weird to me, but I feel like endurance is going to be a big part of this series. Like, the Raptors kind of want to do, like, I don't know what you do in football with like the running game, or like hockey with like whatever they do at both ends of the ice. Like, they want to stretch this game out, because I don't think Harden and Embiid can like sustain a 7-game series in the way that the Raptors play. Like, obviously they're like supreme athletes, they're fit, but I think like one way the Raptors can win this is just by like working harder, and to your point, all of you guys, about like being overtly physical with these guys, like wearing them down, because I think that's one way that, and I said this a month ago, like the one way Embiid and Harden are not like these hard-edged motherfuckers is the fact that they kind of have wilted in the face of like extreme physicality over the course of a series. And I think that's one way the Raptors can kind of like dominate this series, is just being the more physical, the more athletic team throughout the series.
I disagree on the Embiid point, But I think for Harden and Tobias Harris, for sure, they've disintegrated in series. Like, I think Embiid gets killed for no reason. But
I'm not saying he's disintegrated. I'm just saying he doesn't seem to like there's some guys like I don't know. You can take your pick of guys, but there's some guys that are like, I'm not letting this team go down, and it kind of surges the whole team as a whole, you know. And I feel like Embiid has not really done that in series in which it's like everything's on the line. You know, like the Atlanta series is a good example. Like you shit on Ben Simmons, but Embiid should have utterly dominated that series and not let them lose. You know. And obviously, it's more complex than that, but that's just the feeling I get.
Really quick, guys, before we get into our X factors of the series, I just want to delve a little deeper into James Harden. And one thing I think when I spoke to you guys, all know Jackson Frank. I haven't spoke. I really wanted to, but Samson spoke to him. I haven't really had time this week. I've been so busy, but Samson spoke to him one-on-one, I believe, in 2 episodes ago for his podcast. And Jackson is one of the smartest, I think, basketball minds in basketball Twitter.
Fifth smartest, you mean?
One of the things he mentioned was the thing that, you know, and I agree with this, the thing that's going to make this series so much fun is the fact that Philly does things well that Toronto kind of struggles at a bit. A half-court offense. Toronto doesn't want a super slow series, like Oren said, in terms of pace. And then on the other side, when you delve deeper, I talked about James Harden. One thing when you look into game tape for James Harden, especially with the Philadelphia 76ers, even with the Nets, honestly, earlier in the season, one thing James struggles with a lot this season that he never struggled with in Houston was how defenses switched on him. Now, James is a guy that can carve you up if you send 2 at him at the top, on the elbow, whatever it is, baseline. He'll carve you up. Like we said, like he's clearly one of the best playmakers in the league. The one thing he struggled with primarily has been switching. When the Raptors excel at that, that's probably the Raptors' biggest defensive strength. The fact that they can throw Chris Boucher, Precious Achiuwa. You don't, as a Raptors fan, you're not really holding your breath if Precious Achiuwa is stuck on James Harden for one series at the top. OG, Scotty, Pascal. You can throw anybody at James, and he may have a problem. So with Houston, the thing that made James Harden utterly unguardable was the fact that you throw 2 at him, he'll carve you up. You switch on him and it's a one-on-one ISO at the top, he'll carve you up. Screen and roll, he'll carve you up. James Harden cannot do that anymore. And this is, a typical thing with age and usage and what happens at the latter stage of your career. Harden's ability to win one-on-one is going to be critical for the Sixers against the Raptors, and it's going to be critical for the Raptors to stop in this series. I think in this series more than any other possible series. If hypothetically, if the 76ers pass by the Raptors and they go against whoever in the next round, the following round, this series it's going to be key for Harden to beat guys one-on-one. And we'll see, because like I said, he's struggled with switches, so we'll see.
It's frustrating. Like in the NFL, they have player tracking data. So like wide receivers, you can find out how much separation they get on routes, meaning like how far away they are from the defender. Yeah. They need that in the NBA because it feels like when you watch him hard, it feels like, oh, he's not getting any separation on his step back. He's not getting any separation as he blows by people. We've got no real information to back that up because we don't have player tracking data. When they come out with that, it's going to be like a complete game changer. And I think, if we had that, I think I would wager like Harden is getting half the separation he was 2 years ago. And that's a huge amount.
But then the NBA stats nerds would be even more justified and just go into their computers and not watching the games. We can't have any more. No more info. I'm on hashtag no more info.
Yes. Hoop
Thank
minds. You. We're going to be sponsored by Ball Don't Stop at one point. Just talking about hoopers and hoop minds.
Yeah. Maxi a hooper. Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to Hooper.
We're going to X factor of the series. You can choose either team positively or negatively.
I'll start.
Whatever you choose, keep it succinct.
All right, here we go. Succinct. Give me 68 seconds on the clock. I'm going with Precious Achiuwa. And this is something, yeah. So my thing with Achiuwa is that early in the season, the offense was really bad. He didn't have any go-to stuff. And it looked at times like, where is he going to figure out on offense? And what happened was he started shooting the 3 well. and it opened everything up for him. So now his offense comes primarily spotting up from 3, or they close out on his 3. He takes it off the dribble and he either gets right to the lane or he passes it out to an open shooter. Like, he's faster than the 5s who guard him. So when they close out on him, even a step late, he's easily into the lane and past them. So I think so much of his offense is reliant on his shooting being good. And I'm a little bit worried that the shooting in the playoffs will fall off, because that happens all the time with young players. Like, they can get in your head, leaving you open. You miss a couple, and then it goes downhill from there. So to me, Achua has to keep up the shooting in order to really be on the floor, but they need him on the floor for the defense. Like, out of everyone on this entire team, I think him guarding Embiid and then switching on to Harden in that pick and roll is probably your best option. And maybe OG if he's healthy. Like, those are your best options, but Achua is going to need to be able to stay on the floor in order to do that defensively. And so the shooting is what I'm looking towards.
But Precious be chilling, man.
He's chilling. I'm big chilling.
Big chilling. Yeah, the Raptors in the latter half of this season won their games, obviously because of Pascal, but because of Precious's gameplay. Ultimately, like, he was that added shooter specifically, but kind of like playmaker in a lot of like tertiary and quaternary ways. So yeah, he's going to be a big one. Sahal, who you got?
This is tough. I was gonna say Precious, but I don't like agreeing with Oren on here a lot because I am Oren's counterpart. I am going to go with OG Anunoby, and the reason I say that is because Aiden, you mentioned earlier, the Raptors are probably going to need to shoot the 3 at a pretty good rate this series, and I think OG, his versatility in this series is going to be key for the Raptors. I think. By the way, Manny Rao from Raptors Republic posted. I believe he wrote something for Yahoo Sports Canada.
Yeah.
With OG Anunoby. So you guys need to read that. But yeah, OG is going to be key. I think I want to see, like, when I watch the series, especially from game 1 onwards, I want to see an OG that, number one, is in shape. Like, I want to see an OG that's attacking. I don't want to see an OG that's just riddled to or minimized to being in the corner and cutting. I don't want to just to see a cutting OG. I want to see actions with OG, primary actions with OG. I want to see Nick Nurse really put his trust in OG as one of them, primary. I don't want to even say initiators, but maybe scorers on this team. OG, we talk about him so much. We've talked about him so much on Wrap Up Live this entire season. Even when he's been out, he's going to be huge. One of the Raptors' best shooters, especially when he's hot. Beside maybe Fred, you need OG to have a very, very big series, because if you don't and you get an OG that's 10, 11 points per game, not very efficient, defense is there. You know what you're going to get defensively from OG. If you get that side of OG, I'm not 100% sure the Raptors can come out with a win versus Philadelphia. Scotty Barnes is also a guy I want to mention really quick, and I'm not trying to take anybody's answers really quick because I feel like maybe I just pissed off.
Just
Kyle,
cover the whole team, dude. Forget. Just give
well, there's Scotty.
Let's go fuck myself.
You got Svi, and then you got Scotty Barnes is gonna be huge as well. And I really, really hope we will see a Scotty that has confidence to shoot the ball from the perimeter in this series, because if you look at it from Philadelphia's perspective, who are they going to leave open on the perimeter? It's likely going to be guys like Scotty Barnes, Precious Achua, and the likes. Obviously, Kem Birch when he does that thing where he sits in the corner once in a while. But OG's my guy, and then I'm probably going to say Scotty's just right behind him for X factors of the series.
Well, while we're on it, I'll take Scotty. I'm there.
Nice.
No, he was taken, actually.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, thanks, Oren. Thanks, Oren. Appreciate you.
I'm there. I think, to me, this is his opportunity to solidify himself as the second option on this team. Fred's knee is hurt. OG is hurt, and also didn't look great at the beginning of the year. We don't have to get into that. Precious is still coming around. They just don't. Gary is going to get his shots up, but he's been cold. Scotty should be the number 2 on this team. I just want to see I want to see him come into the series and establish himself as the Robin to Siakam's Batman. And I think, we talked about pressures the shooting might go, and that happens with young players. But who I'm incredibly confident is not going to be phased at all by a big moment is Scotty Barnes. I do not think that guy has any conscience about this kind of stuff at all. He went out there on All-Star Weekend and bricked like 15 consecutive layups.
He's such a free soul, man. I love him.
Afterwards, screaming, yelling, like hugging his teammate. That guy doesn't care. He doesn't care about failure. He doesn't care about all this kind of stuff that might get to other people. He's his biggest strength is that he is mentally one of the toughest players on this team. And I just think like that's the type of thing you need in the playoffs is these intangibles. Like, I don't care if I miss 4 straight shots. I'm confident enough to go get mine the next time. So I mean, give me Scotty.
Yeah.
To your point, I'm interested who they guard him with to start the series off.
I think it'll be Tobias Harris, right? That would be my guess.
Let him shoot.
Well, who's Siakam getting first then?
Oh, they got to start with Embiid on Siakam to me. I mean, like, they have no answer for him. I mean, look at what happened last game. Like, I wouldn't even. Who knows? It's Doc. Doc isn't always the quickest to adjust, but like, if he's watched any game tape from the last Sixers Raptors game, there's no way you can let anyone but Embiid start on Siakam.
I think Tobias is going to start on Siakam.
Oh, I think Tyball's going to start on him.
I guess you're right. In game 1, we haven't even talked about Tyball.
He might.
That's why all of your answers are why I'm pretty high on the Raptors series. I feel like there are so many potential guys on the Raptors who could exploit their matchups offensively. Like it's possible none of them do, but so much more than Philly. It's like Philly's got 3 dudes, and this is actually a good segue to my X factor, who's going to be Tobias Harris. If Tobias Harris has a good series, even though people say he's washed, but he is a capable scorer. If he becomes that 3rd or 4th scorer for them, I think like we're in trouble because of the way we scramble on defense, the way we leave guys open in the corner. Like we saw how Danny Green and George Niang hurt us in that last game of the season because they were open. Tobias can do that, plus he can create for himself to some degree. In losses this year, Tobias Harris has been 34% from 3, 17 points a game, 45% shooting. But in wins, he's shooting 39% from 3, 50% from 2, and scoring 18 points a game. So like they need him to be that outlet guy that kind of relieves some of the pressure that Harden and Embiid are going to face. So, yeah, I think Tobias Harris is the guy I'm kind of monitoring throughout this series.
Philadelphia fans are ruthless. I mean, who hasn't gotten booed on their team? I'm pretty sure Joel has even gone through something like this where, like, Philadelphia fans, I'll give them credit. They are probably the most passionate fan base in the league. Like, they have a good shot at that title. But their passion is rooted in such weird like hatred for their own players, and I'll never really understand it. It's like
that's just Philly, man.
Yeah, that's just Philly. Yep. I mean, it's the same thing with the Eagles. Kyle knows that probably as well as my resident NFL brother.
High recommendation: go to YouTube and search Bill Burr does stand up in Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's a classic.
You know, like if you haven't seen it, it is quality entertainment of him just ragging on Philadelphians.
Yeah,
I think go.
Sorry,
go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm actually going to save it for our next segments in terms of predictions.
Okay. Well, I was going to say it's a good point because the way they're going to defend Harden and Embiid is that Tobias and Danny Green and Tyball, these guys are going to have wide open threes.
Yeah. And
out of those 3, the guy I probably think has the most potential to punish them is Tobias. So, yeah, in that way, those guys are the X factors of the series. Like, that's just it's the way that the Raptors defended the Celtics and Marcus Smart made them pay for it. It's the same thing. If they have a Marcus Smart, then the Raptors are probably toast.
And this is also what I mean about earlier when I said like the Raptors need to like turn this into a running game, like football wise. Like they need to like Toby's a nice guy. He's a softie. Like he's got kind of like tubey arms. They need to like bruise him up. They need to like put him on his heels, They need him to come down when he's open and his legs are kind of like a little bit, like rubbery from having to box out Scotty possession after possession. Like there are
Play
so
him
many
like
guys that we can physically exploit over the course of the series.
play him like 20 snaps with the Eagles in their preseason games, and then like maybe you can just get him back. Like just quick 20 snaps first game, bring him back.
Yeah,
He'll be
just
ready
run a
for training camp.
red route 87-19.
You guys don't know what you're talking about. You don't know football.
Okay.
Get out of here.
Okay, Oren. I like that. Red route. What do you say that one more time?
87-19.
87-19.
Yeah, I remember that.
You're gonna want
call
to
for
X
fucking
out on
Monday.
He
the
knows one
backfield.
Tecmo Super Bowl like play, and he like just quotes it time and time.
You're gonna want to
That's
put
great.
lots of pucks on that. as
Okay.
well.
I have to go travel in about like half an hour, so let's get to some questions. And if we keep going, I'll just gracefully duck out, and you guys can continue on. Question from Maxwell Tomlinson: how good would it look for Nick Nurse if Raps beat the 76ers team with 2 All-Stars? Wow, I mean, pretty good. He's pretty much top of the league. Like
Regardless of what happens.
Yeah, I don't
God,
know if
yeah.
his Q rating can get much higher. Like,
Yeah,
he's-
exactly.
He's the guy who's like, getting the most love out of anyone in the entire league, coaching wise. So like, yeah, it would look great for him, but I don't think he really needs a good PR. I think if anything, I think it's just the biggest swing would be it's going to look terrible for Doc. Doc is like an underrated. People talk about like, oh, Harden, Harden is under a lot of pressure this series. Man, Doc Rivers is under a ton of pressure.
If they lose in 7, Kyle, is he fired?
I think he's gone if they lose.
Well, the thing is,
Yeah, like
Morey brought him in, right?
Yeah, but they no. Is that true? I don't think is that the case.
I think so.
No, I think he was before
He was
Morey.
there. He was there. He was there, and then Morey came in. Morey probably wants like some.
This is Morey's first year.
Yeah, Morey probably wants some like 7-year-old white dude who like wants to shoot threes and stuff. That's who Morey wants coaching his teams. He doesn't want he doesn't want Doc. So
Morey's
I don't know. I think
all up in JJ Redick's DMs right now, begging him to come back.
Well, Doc already has 3 3-1 series leads that he lost, and he has the most Game 7 losses in NBA history. But
I used to back Doc Rivers because I'm of the 2008 Boston Celtics championship. Like those guys are near and dear to my heart. But I just watched an interview with him, like
gross,
fucking, like tossing Paul Reed
fucking?
into like a toxic river. Like I think he's become a stubborn old man.
I actually love Doc.
I just want to quickly mention.
I think he's a great player guy, but like I think he's too stubborn, and
he's stubborn for sure in a playoff series. He doesn't adjust very much. But I want to say from the Raptors perspective, like you guys said, like Nurse, his Q rating from the regular season, getting the 5 spot with this roster, he's already done enough. I think what this would do, a win or like especially in a deep playoff run, would validate like the organization and the route that they've taken, just like this completely different style of basketball. And just like, I think it would be great for the NBA because it shows that like there are different ways to win in this league. You don't have to follow the blueprint, try to get a star in free agency. You don't have to do that. It would validate like that there's different ways to win if you get creative and you just you find different things.
Yeah. Next question. This is an interesting one. I like the lineups generally are interesting. I am so anti our small lineup of Scotty, Freddie, Gary, OG, Pascal.
You hate small people.
What's that?
You hate small people.
Yeah.
Sorry,
now it makes sense.
As a
Now it makes sense that you and Oren don't get along. Now it's starting. Okay.
Kyle's a huge one. Anyway, I don't think there's enough room for Birch in this series, but I do think, again, going back to that like war in the trenches kind of thing, get him out there and let him throw a couple bows, pick up some fouls, and then let him sit. Like, I don't think that's a bad thing with Embiid. Philly has nobody to replace Embiid. We have like 4 dudes that we can just throw at Embiid and not really worry about.
Yeah. Ken Birch, I think, has to play. He's one of the few guys on Toronto who has an extremely strong core that can hold up Embiid for the 2 or 3 seconds before you send that double to him, before he's underneath the basket, before you know it. So Embiid on Siakam, I mean, 2 back downs and he's already underneath the paint. Kem can hold him up for a little bit longer. This is something Will Lou mentioned as well, I believe, on Monday during his 76ers preview. Kembert, you need him to hold Embiid. Just hold him for 3 seconds. You don't need to. Nobody in this league is stopping Embiid one-on-one. Just hold him for those few seconds, blitz him, and then kind of just find your way defensively for the Raptors. So I think Kembert has to play for that reason. And then offensively, he's always been a spatially aware guy, so he kind of just finds his pockets around the rim. So I think he almost has to play. I don't know how much, and I don't know how much of a leash he'll have with Nick Nurse, but I think he has to play.
This is a good question, and if I don't see Barnes closing, if I see Thad Young closing over Barnes, I'm losing it. I'm going to start getting on Nick Nurse.
I disagree.
I know you do, of course you do, but like, come on, let's be real here. This is ultimately it's a development year. You got a guy who's like brings like a completely different energy.
I disagree.
To anyone
There's
else
no more development in the playoffs. Once you're in the playoffs, it's over.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying you need to get there is still an element if all things still an element like you should get the player who is like your future playoff reps. That's the first thing. Second thing is like Scotty brings an energy that no one else in this team has except for Precious, of course.
So I didn't bring
needs to be out there.
I didn't bring this question up because ultimately it depends. Like when Scotty's struggling,
exactly.
which he can do, you throw Thad out there. But I do think there's a world in where like Thad's the guy that's going to muscle up Embiid and give you what you need on the offensive end at the same time. Like he's our closest guy to that versatile big at both ends of the floor, whereas Birch is limited to one dimension. There's Precious too, I suppose.
I think like it's hard to answer.
It could be
it'll probably be 2
is.
games. It'll probably be 2 games where Barnes
Exactly.
closes, 2 games where Thad closes, and a game where Precious
And
closes.
that's the thing with Nick Nurse. He'll adjust. It's not like he's just going to stick stubbornly to one of these guys to close games. I think
whoever has it going.
If you're Doc, you're probably sticking to one guy, but not Nick.
I would wager foul trouble aside, you see Barnes closing every single game.
You could see both too. Like that's the other thing with Philly is their lineup's static enough that you could have Scotty on Tobias or Precious on Tobias and still have Thaddeus on Embiid.
For sure. Like Gary's not going to close every game. I'll tell you that right now too.
No.
I don't know if I'm all the way here with Quinn, but like I'm close enough that like I don't think it's like we're not winning a chip, so let's not try to win the game. But I'm saying like if you were at the point where Thad and Scotty are giving you like an equal amount of production, it has to be Scotty every single time. I'm sorry, it just has to be.
Yeah, I disagree with the like development goes out the window for me in the playoffs. You just got to win games. Like
and Oren's the development guy.
It's enough development just to game plan and see what's going on and play.
I've been saying this all year. You got to keep that same energy when Precious launches like a 35-footer with like 15 seconds left in the shot clock over 2 defenders, and you got to keep that same. You got to keep that same energy about the development going out the window. Okay.
See, I don't like this question either because it also just depends. Like, unless we want to talk about generally what you think the rotations are going to be.
No, but I think I'm talking about how long do they start this lineup for? Like, is this starting on Saturday?
I think they start. Yeah, I think they do, but I think they should start Kem. But
they might start Precious over OG depending on the health wise too. Like you might have OG just like get up to speed off the bench because he hasn't really looked great since he's come back. Like
Manny asked in the roundtable, like, what would you have done differently at the start of the season? And I said I would have taken one of these guys and had them situated as the 6th person.
Yeah.
Just so that you can go to it in the playoffs and it feels natural. Whereas now it's like, even I have trouble politically being like, okay, Scotty, you're coming off the bench, or like Gary, you're going to be our 6th guy now. It's like I've been starting when I've been healthy. Like I think they've put themselves in a little bit of a bind there.
Aiden, let's role play here. I'm Gary Trent Jr. You're telling me that I'm going to the bench. What do you say to me? Let me hear it.
Look, Gary, like we really prize, what you do for this team, and you contribute a lot. And I want you to succeed. I really do. And I think the best way for you to do that is to come off the bench with Chris and Precious. You can jack as much as you want. I promise I won't get mad.
You could jack off every single shot.
It's 1:21 p.m. on a Friday, Oren.
No, man.
Sorry.
I'm good.
You're right.
Yeah.
It's also Passover and Ramadan, so I should be better.
This is
I gotta be better.
There's a culturally aware man.
a holy day for the triumphant of the Old Testament religions.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Next
Okay,
question.
I really gotta go. So I'm. Let's do one more question, then you guys can do more if you want.
You could swim to catch up to the ferry. It's not. A
No,
big
I think
deal.
an hour is good for
I'm
me.
a travel anxiety guy.
Are we
Like, if
doing
I'm not at the
predictions?
airport 3 hours.
Oh yeah,
ahead of
why don't
time,
we just get
sure.
into
Yeah, we should do
predictions
predictions.
right
I
now?
want to do
Get the hell out
predictions.
of
With
here.
Okay,
Aiden,
let's go
before
to
you leave.
predictions, and then you can go back to
Aiden,
questions.
you start. You start, Aiden, with your prediction because you have to go the soonest.
Okay, well,
This is going to be good.
everybody's been saying, like, "Whoa, Raptors in 6 is so predictable." Blah blah blah. I'm gonna say
Do it.
Raptors in 5.
Wow.
I like it. I
just
wanted
okay.
to say that, and I'm too pansy too. So
I
Okay,
just
like it.
really feel like this is our series to like take by the neck and crush the esophagus and the trachea until the 76ers and their fans and their Elton Brand and everybody else are suffocating under the stifling Raptors defense.
What game does Philly win in that hypothetical 5-game series?
It's probably tonight or it's tomorrow night.
First game. Okay.
Yeah.
4 in a row
Raptors
for
are
Raps.
notorious for that.
Who wants to go next? Oren,
I-
Kyle?
Well, I want to plug I listened to a good podcast with Joe Wolfond and the guys from the store and Joseph Casharo, and it was the Ball podcast with Trill Bro Dude, who's a 76ers pod. It was a good pod, but at the end they were making predictions, and I agree with you. And they said something like, this series could turn for the Sixers against them real quick. Like, I could see a world where the Raptors put the foot on their neck and the Sixers completely fold, and it's over in 5. So I think that's definitely within the realm of possibility. I'm going Raptors 7.
That was my second choice.
I wrote about this on Yahoo. I'm going to plug my own work because we've been plugging everyone else's. So if you guys want to go to Yahoo, I wrote a series preview today and like basically said that in a battle of which team is going to be more composed, I'm actually picking the Raptors. Like in a game 7, like which team can like get over, like, how much pressure is going to be on the Sixers. And I'm picking the Raptors in that type of environment.
Yeah, for me, Aiden, I kind of see what you're saying. Like, you could definitely, there's a world in which like James Harden is like getting an 8-second violation, like not getting the ball up the floor in game 5, and like the in Philly, and he's getting
the
booed.
flu.
Yeah, and Embiid's like sitting on the bench with a towel over his head and like 2 massive ice bags over his knees, like covering his face. It's the 20-point lead going into like back to Philadelphia type thing. I see that. I'm gonna go Raptors in 7. I'm gonna go even farther predictions. Scotty has a huge game to close out the series. He's solidifies himself as like the next emerging star. I'm talking like 15 rebounds, maybe less than 20 points, 18 points, 15 rebounds, 4 or 5 assists, and like some late buckets on over Tobias Harris, and the series that's closed out.
Get ready, guys. I'm going to do something you guys will all hate, and I'm going to give you
Sixers in 4.
No, that's not what I'm going to do. I am going to give you what so my brain thinks that the Raptors will win in 7. However, you know me, I'm going with the heart.
Let your heart
Raptors,
sing,
guys.
man. Let it sing.
My heart is not beating right now as fast as Aiden's, so I will say Raptors in 6. However, my brain is telling me I would be absolutely shocked if this series doesn't go to 7 either way. I just don't see a series that Philadelphia wins in 6 or 5, or the Raptors win in 5 or 6. I don't know. I just feel like these teams are a lot more equally matched than people think. And by the way, guys, this is what I was gonna say earlier, Oren, but I said save it for this segment. Philadelphia are the favorites. I just want to make that very clear. There's no pressure on the Raptors fans. Raptors fans, if you're watching this, there's no pressure on us. We're watching this series. You lose.
We're laughing. We're not.
It is
No
what
one's.
it is.
It's so easy. No one's gonna be.
I'm
One's gonna
already
be up on
thinking about it.
up in their living room alone, screaming at their cat. No one's doing that.
Come on, guys. All the pressure in this series, all of it is on Philadelphia.
100%.
They made the massive trade. at the deadline for Harden. They have the MVP, in my opinion, in Joel Embiid. They have guys surrounding those two guys, and the Raptors have a very young, very good core, but a very young core. All the pressure is on Philadelphia, and I think the thing is, when you look at this series from a macro perspective, I think most people would say, most NBA fans would say it's probably 60-40 Philly in terms of who would win this series. But guys, pressure's not on it. We're laughing. Come on, Wrap Up Live viewers. We are laughing no matter what happens in the series. Honestly, unless the only thing I won't accept is, okay, you're not laughing. Okay, thanks, buddy. The only thing I will not accept is a 4-game sweep. That will devastate me from Philadelphia, which will not happen, obviously. But I love going into a series where there's no pressure on you and where you feel like, when you think about this series and you analyze the series, there's a real overall advantage that the Raptors may have over Philly. Again, unless you have money on it, then there's no pressure, guys. But if you don't have money and you are not a gambling addict like I used to be way back when, then you'll be fine.
Guys, two questions. One, if Philly loses this series, do you re-sign Harden? And two, where are you watching the game and what beer are you drinking? Oren.
If Philly loses, forget Harden. Excommunicate Daryl Morey from the United States of America. Like I've had enough of this.
Are you signing Harden or not?
I've had absolutely enough of this guy. No, probably not. Like, I mean, the thing is, he has another year, right? So I would let the next year play out before making a decision. But hashtag Deport Morey has to start trending, because this guy, I think it would be a great example if they lose. I'll say it's a big if, but of just how you can't only focus on the analytics and the numbers part, like. Because the Raptors are the perfect example of focusing on the opposite, the intangibles. And if they beat them, then excommunicate Daryl Morey to China. Anyways,
where are you watching the game? Where are you watching the game, and what are you drinking?
Oh, well, I'm so boring. I have to write about these games, so I'm gonna watch them alone in my. I mean, I'll be at the home games, but away games, just gonna watch them alone with my cat Joni. We're gonna just drink water.
Drinking? Milk.
Joan's drinking water. She doesn't like milk.
Nice.
She doesn't like tuna. She's a weird cat.
Whoa.
I'll probably
that's a good type of cat to have, man.
Drink either some red wine or some whiskey on ice for the really tense moments. How about you guys?
Kyle.
I'll be watching either, with my dad or with some friends here in Halifax, and I'll be drinking, I don't know, maybe something local, something craft. It's a hipster society when you're hipster or something else.
Are you re-signing Harden?
IPA. And I'm re-signing Harden instantly. I don't think that's a discussion. Like, whatever. You have it's 5 years, whatever. Like, you can get off contract so easily. The fact that Russell Westbrook is going to be moved is proof that, like, you can get off any contract ever.
Yeah, but they're gonna have to give up picks to move him.
Who cares? Are your picks, as long as Embiid's on your team, are your picks that valuable? Like, who cares?
Yeah. And the fact that Jordan's probably like the only owner in the world that probably wants Westbrook because of the Jordan connection. But will I re-sign Harden? Yes, because of what Kyle said. I think it's easy, much easier than people think to move on from contracts that are very heavy in nature. It's so tough though, because it's like, this is a clearly declining player, and you usually don't put all your eggs in the basket for that guy. But again, you're not really putting all your eggs in the basket because you can move on from contracts. What will I be drinking? Guys, I'll be drinking water. I do not drink. I've made that pretty clear. I do not drink. So I will be drinking nothing but water, bubbly.
Buble,
yeah. And I'm fasting, so it's like I gotta wait till sunset as well.
Do you have like a tasty drink you have when you break fast?
Like, what's your go-to?
I try, Aiden, to stick to water more than anything. I've always been a big fruit juice guy. I've always been a huge apple juice guy. Like, apple juice for me, when it's out the fridge. Guys, I'm apple juice over orange juice, number one. Okay,
I might leave. I might head out.
What?
No.
I might head out.
No.
What?
The grapefruit is even worse.
Mango juice is my favorite juice.
There we go. And I got that in the fridge too.
Nectar. It's nectar.
Honey is my favorite drink.
That's bullshit, dude. Stop.
Okay. I am going to be watching it at a house with friends. I will be drinking a Mexican-style lager. because they're
Ooh.
low percentage, so you can have multiple and still, be able to focus.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
Whatever you have to do to justify it, man.
Vimto.
Chris,
Shout
you
out,
want to chime
shout out
in
to
here?
all my people.
Where are you?
Shout
And
out-
I'm not re-signing Harden, by the way.
Yeah, same. If they
Shout out to all
they
my
lose.
people really quick that drink Vimto. I just want to say that really quick for all my Ramadan folks out
Yo,
there.
BioSteel? I had one of those recently.
drink.
Gross. I
Chris,
don't
come
like
in here and join us. Tell us where you're watching the game.
I will be watching the same place I produced the wrap up in the dark in front of my computer,
Your cave.
like a true fan.
Good.
I'm
And
with you.
A drink of choice?
Just water, Diet Coke, huge Diet Coke head.
Yeah.
Coke Zero.
Diet Coke
Relax,
head.
Chris.
Coke
Coke
Zero.
Zero.
Coke
Real Diet Coke
Can't-
head. That's
Can't
so
ride
funny.
with the Coke Zero take, but
Oh my god.
Diet Coke head is very funny.
Yeah, I'm kind of dying at the idea of being a Diet Coke.
Like
Yeah,
you're
I'm on a Coke
snorting
diet.
baby powder or something. A Diet Coke head.
Whatever
Okay.
happened to the
All right, what a way to
just
end it.
Coke heads, I miss the
All
old
right, yeah.
Coke heads.
I got
I was
20
walking
minutes
around-
to pack. I gotta get the fuck out of here.
Okay, listen,
you
hurry
do.
up. No, it's
Do you-
on.
You know, no
you
one
guys
else. Yeah, okay, I'm
Are
done.
you guys gonna stay on? Or you want me to?
No, we should head out. We should.
Okay.
gotta eat.
This is brought to you by canamtax.com, the Score betting app.
And Allen apple juice, where it's best drinked cold.
Yeah, there we go. Nice.
Apple
You
juice
know
is
it.
like the sugar lobby has manipulated our parents into thinking it's good for our children, and it's caused diabetes and pharmaceutical companies. Blah 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 blah.
Oh.
No, I'm joking. All right. Good luck to everybody. I can't wait for this game. I'm very excited.
Guys,
Bet
don't
on
forget
the
to
Raptors,
like.
I'm telling you. That's where
Yes,
it's
don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Like Aiden said, the Score Bet. It's the link is in the description, guys. I'm sure everybody has seen the Score Bet ads absolutely everywhere on their phone lately. I don't know
Too
what
much.
they're doing with
Too
their
much.
algorithm, but I mean, it is what it is. So the Score Bet, thank you, Can-Am Tax, thank you for being with us the entire season and throughout the playoffs. We'll see you guys very soon. Like if you enjoyed it. We love you guys. We'll see you guys very soon.
Oh, and for the
Um,
people that caught this live and didn't watch the whole show, it'll be on YouTube,
Yes.
the whole show right after this ends.
Shout out to Chris for producing.
Yes, we love
Peace,
Chris House and
everybody.
Jan.